30 for 30 on Naismith's putback dunk. That was an inflection point. Cleveland's turnovers, Max Strus is particularly brutal. No shots attempt by the Cavs the final 48 seconds. And then the league's most overrated player, as voted on by players, take that for motivation, Tyrese Haliburton. His missed free throw, though. Check this out. Freeze it. Did he get in too quick? Either way, what followed after, you've seen a million times by now. The coldest shot in Pacers history. Another crown for Haliburton. His dad must have torn up his own living room, yelling at the fireplace mantle. Kenny Atkinson on the Cavs collapse. We ran out of gas. J.A. Adonde, your tank is full. What did we just witness?
I mean, well, it's appropriate that it was 30 years ago today that Reggie Miller scored 8 points in 9 seconds in Madison Square Garden, because we just saw something that really was the equivalent of that, the utter improbability. We also saw on the Cleveland side, the downside of having Donovan Mitchell as your best player, who carried them so far through that game, but the lack of size, I think, played a big role in some of those offensive rebounds as well. But I think you just have to give it to the Pacers and just, they're determined. They're like some, as Bart Simpson would say, some never giving up school principal guys. Like, that's how determined they are. And now we can expect this, right? If you do it twice in a week, it doesn't matter if it's only hasn't been done 3 times.
Or you're expecting another one of these? I don't know. Easy Romeo, some might say. David Dennis Jr. around the horn to you on what we just witnessed.
Yeah, it's not just the anniversary of Reggie Miller's 8 points. There's also today the anniversary of Jordan hitting the shot against Cleveland. So maybe the universe was conspiring for a little bit of magic in all of this. When this first happened to Milwaukee in Game 5, we talked a lot about Milwaukee and the way that they choked that away. But when it happens twice, you have to put the focus on the Indiana Pacers and the way that they execute down the stretch, namely Tyrese Haliburton, who has emerged as the second coming of Reggie Miller in terms of the way that his clutch performance in the playoff have gone. This season, he is 10 for 11 in shots to tie or go ahead in the last 2 minutes of games this season. That is unreal. We have a real-life playoff threat with this Pacers team, especially if the Cavs cannot get healthy in time to make it.
I don't know why I put the algorithm up there like it was such complex mathematics. 10 of 11, which is just
10-11.
Unbelievable. Mina Kimes, what do we witness?
I mean, just clutch greatness. David's absolutely right. I was actually on the show after they did it to the Bucks, and I do remember we talked about the Bucks choking. We talked about how it was like historically unprecedented. Oh my gosh, it couldn't possibly happen again. It happened again, and when that happens, at a certain point, you got to point to the player because it's obviously in Haliburton's DNA. That said, I'm not damning the Cavs the same way I did the Bucks, which is to say I don't think it's a choke job, because I think Coach Atkinson is right. They were gassed, and obviously they were missing a bunch of their players, Mobley, Garland, Hunter, and it really started showing up in the fourth quarter. They just weren't able to go up for rebounds. They were taking bad shots. They were playing bad defense, and really this was a result of that.
All right. That's some excuses Cleveland's way. Tim, they didn't attempt a shot in the final 48 seconds. The turnovers. Go ahead, please. Floor is yours.
Yeah, they went the University of Houston route at the end, and that's never good in the final minute when you don't get shots off. But 2011, Rick Carlisle was hailed as something of a genius when his Dallas team beat the first edition of LeBron, Wade, and Bosh. Then he took about a decade off from winning playoff series. Wasn't all his fault. People have been reminded last year and this year he can really coach. His teams are creative offensively, and man, this team plays harder than any Dallas team I ever remember. That team didn't give up. They're 7 down inside of a minute. And Nembhard and Nesmith and all those guys are just making plays and steals and maybe committing some lane violations, but everybody commits lane violations. So that's not that big a deal.
Okay.
And as you said, Haliburton showing the world he's not overrated.
Donde, back to you. What a shock to the senses for the Cavaliers, because they set the NBA record for point margin in a series just a week ago, and now down in the way that they are, 0-2, and half the roster in a MASH unit at this moment. Is it as bad as it sounds, down 0-2, Jay?
It is, and Kenny Atkinson gave a lot of credit to Luck for why they had such a successful season. He didn't say, just give me the credit, I'm the coach of the year. He says, look, they're unlucky right now. The one thing they can take from the past is that the Knicks were able to bounce back from some of those Reggie Miller daggers in the past and either win the series or force it to a Game 7. So it's not complete.
All right, we don't need to go back to the Knicks 35 years ago. David Dennis Jr., is it as bad as it sounds for the Cavs right now?
It's really bad, especially when we look at the fact that Donovan Mitchell may be dealing with his own calf strain. You got to feel for him as well for the season that he's had. And, we have the stats of how bad he does when he shoots more than 30 times. He had 48 points last night and carried that team. And for them to lose in that manner and him have an injury, it's terrible, terrible for him.
Terrible. Mina, is there any hope for Cleveland?
Considering the fact that the Pacers were 12-0 this season when they were up 2-0 in series, I'm not feeling good if I'm Cleveland. And then you compound that, of course, with the injuries, which I think got them to this point. That was a game they could not afford to lose, and then they lost.
Is this a clean sweep? Everybody's now on Indiana? Tim, is it over?
I don't think the series is going to be a sweep. I think Indiana's going to win the series. I think Mobley and Garland have to come back and give them a chance. Donovan Mitchell, we saw, can't do it alone.
Mm-hmm. Have you learned nothing from Bill Plaschke in our 23 years of Around the Horn? We'll move on. NFL trades. Cowboys like China in a bull closet, clanging through the NBA and NHL playoffs to give us headline 2. The trade for George Pickens to place him at wide receiver 2 opposite CeeDee Lamb. And it was a third-round pick going back Pittsburgh way. Pickens, we all know, has the ability and has had the moments in this league, putting it all together, though, and now he's also on the last year of his contract. Surely we won't hear about that ever again. Tim Cowlishaw, not surprising. It's a splashy move for the Cowboys. Was it a good move?
Tony, I want to get this in once in my 23 years on the shows. The Cowboys did something brilliant. The Cowboys fleeced another team in a trade. I don't think I've ever said that before. Check your tapes going back to 2002. When you can get George Pickens, let's just talk about him on the field. When you can get him as your number 2 receiver, all of a sudden the Eagles' top 2 receivers aren't better than your top 2 receivers anymore. All of a sudden you've caught up to a lot of teams, pretty much everybody, as far as the top 2. Now, is George Pickens terminally unhappy, or was he unhappy in Pittsburgh with the quarterbacks and all the things that went on there, and the fact that Mike Tomlin has trouble dealing with unhappy players? I don't know. If Dak and CD and all these guys can't keep him happy, that's on the Cowboys to do that. It's on Brian Schottenheimer.
You love this move.
He's a terrific player. Their number 2 receiver yesterday was Jonathan Mingo. Today it's George Pickens. That's an enormous difference.
Timmy loves it. Mina Kimes, how about you?
I'm a little bit more tempered in my praise of the Cowboys. I do like it because they obviously needed a receiver, and it was very unlikely they would get one like George Pickens, who over the last couple of years is tied with Justin Jefferson for the most catches on 20-yard plus throws. He's a big play machine who pairs really well with CeeDee Lamb and a quarterback in Dak Prescott who likes to throw, aggressive and downfield. But I don't think they fleeced Pittsburgh, because I do think you can look at this from Pittsburgh's point of view and understand why they did it. Pretty similar skill set to DK Metcalf, who they just paid. I don't think they wanted to pay George Pickens. And as good as he is, as good as the raw numbers are, he's up and down. He is inconsistent. I think that drove the Steelers a little bit crazy. They're pivoting to a more run-centric offense, emphasize that in the draft. So I see the vision, even if the quarterback piece of the vision is still unknown.
David Dennis Jr.
This is a very Cowboysian move from the Cowboys. You have a guy who is a great on-the-field person, 16.5 yards per catch, 2,000 yards. Nobody in the league has done that over the last 3 years. But then you have the volatility of who this guy is in the locker room. You got to wonder, Mike Tomlin has dealt with difficult wide receivers before. What does it take for him to move on from one and going into a contract year and going into a clear number 2 position? You have to wonder what that means for the Cowboys and what kind of guy they're bringing to the locker room. High risk, high reward. It's very Cowboys.
Yeah, Tim, one thing we have discussed in the 2 decades we've been doing this show plenty of times is the Cowboys making a splashy off-season move, particularly or even at receiver, right? With Terrell Owens, who had some of the qualities that David Dennis was talking about. How'd that work out for them? So I'm not overly impressed. I'm not penciling the Cowboys into the Super Bowl, particularly when you have a player that Mike Tomlin said needed to grow up, had some maturity issues, and now he's going to a place where clearly CeeDee Lamb is the number 1 receiver, right? And Pickens had these issues when he was the guy. Lamb accounted for basically half of the Cowboys' receiving production. How much is going to be left to go around for Pickens and the other receivers and the tight ends, et cetera? I'm not convinced this is going to go over smoothly down and down.
Mina, Tim said it was the best 1-2 combo receivers in the NFL. You agree with that?
I did raise my eyebrows a little bit. Or he said compared to the Eagles, I think A.J. Brown and Devontae Smith. Yeah, I think A.J. Brown and Devontae Smith is a better.
Pickens among NBA. Steph Curry's hamstring, the latest. Warriors have ruled him out for at least 1 week. So that's at least through game 2, 3, and 4. How Golden State responds without him, we'll see. How they responded last night, 30 minutes played. They were up 10 at one point, got up to 21. Won by 11. So that's one thing. The other, how Anthony Edwards had absolutely nothing in the first half, and how Chris Finch sounded post-game about Edwards.
That starts with Anthony. You know, I thought he struggled early, and then you could just kind of see the light go out a little bit. You're the leader of the team, and you got to come out and set the tone. You know, in all ways that happens. And if your shot's not going, like you still have to carry the energy.
Never want to hear about an Anthony struggling and not carrying the energy and not setting tone. Here we go, Mina Kimes. What you buy, what you sell?
I am buying that it's really good that Golden State won this game, even with Steph injured for much of it, because I don't think Minnesota plays as bad in the next two, particularly shooting from three. I mean, they've just been god-awful, Tony. Over the last 2 games, the worst three-point shooting percentage of any 2-game stretch in NBA playoff history. And this is the team that was... It's something, but this is a team that was 5th overall during the regular season in 3-point shooting. So I think there's going to be some regression there. I think they'll be able to take advantage of Steph being out. So it's good that the Warriors won this one so that they can at least tread water.
DC, do you think this team could tread water 3 games, maybe more without Curry?
Tread water and get the series to 2-2, and maybe he's back in Game 5. That's maybe the best they can do. I mean, I think Minnesota can play a lot better. I think Chris Finch is absolutely right. I don't think you can call Anthony Edwards a great player as long as he's having games like this. And he has games like he did against Dallas in the conference final where he just disappears. And when his shot doesn't go, the light going out is exactly right. He can't do that. And at the end of the game, the Timberwolves decided to remember, hey, against a small lineup, Rudy Gobert can do a lot of damage. Why don't we get him the ball and he'll get fouled, he'll get rebounds? They got to go to that much quicker against.
Jay, can I start with you on Finch, on Edwards? You've covered the game for 3 decades. To hear a coach say the light goes out on his star player, how'd you hear it?
Yeah, these are the type of things you want to be working out in the middle of a playoff series, but maybe we can give some credit to Buddy Hield's defense on him. Hield has been playing pretty well defensively throughout these playoffs, surprisingly, even to his own coach, Steve Kerr. But Hield really is the key if the Warriors are going to survive here. If they can get this version they've had going back to Game 7 in Houston and in Game 1 here, who can be Klay Thompson-ish, and Jimmy Butler can step into the Steph Curry role, maybe they can trade water and get one of these next 3 games. NBA didn't do them any favors, by the way. The Pacers get 2 days off before they play on Friday. The Warriors got to play tomorrow night.
I know that.
Thanks a lot,
David Dennis Jr.
Yeah, the defense is the key here. You can see the Warriors, and especially Steph, early in that game, looked like they had fought in quicksand against that Rockets team, then were on a racetrack playing that defense against Minnesota. Conversely, Minnesota was playing against a paper-mache defense against the Lakers and finally saw the #1 defense in the league since Jimmy Butler got there and had no answer for them. If the Warriors can sustain that defense and really just get 1 or 2 more games, they have like a 3-day break between games 5 and game 6. If they can still be in there by game 6 when Steph could possibly come back, they're really still in this
From
series.
Minnesota's perspective, you said it was the defense in Golden State. On hearing the coach say, our star Anthony Edwards, the light goes out on him, David.
Yeah, that's a problem, and it's true. Anthony Edwards has to fight through when the defense knows how to hone in on him, maybe double team him, and play him tougher than he's seen in the playoffs so far throughout his career.
To the ice last night. Bigger Game 1 result. The Oilers are setting an NHL record as we speak. 5th straight comeback win in the postseason. Unbelievable. That was to beat the Knights in Vegas. Hurricanes shot a palooza in Washington to beat the Capitals in overtime. Carolina fired 94 attempts all over the ice, 33 on goal, opposed to the 14 on net by Washington. Tim, what's the bigger wow?
I think it's Edmonton with the 5 straight comebacks, and they do it not just, we know about McDavid and Draisaitl scoring goals. They shut down the other team's attack. They used their forecheck to just take Vegas right off the ice. Vegas had 1 shot on goal in the second period. They disappeared after they got that 2-goal lead. That's what Edmonton can do.
Adonde.
The biggest wow to me is Carolina, despite that huge discrepancy in shot attempts and shots on goal, didn't get a shot on goal when they had a power play for the last 2 minutes of the third period. This thing should have been over in regulation, and somehow they've been pestering the net all night, and yet they couldn't get a shot on goal.
But they won the game in overtime. I don't know how that's your takeaway, that they didn't shoot the ball.
Question whether they deserve to, because that was choking right now.
David Dennis Jr., please.
Hey, I'm gonna go with the team that actually won, and that's the Oilers, and they are plus 11 in the third period. This is a function of them knowing how to come back. This is not a fluky thing. They've 5 straight after having, struggling in the beginning of these games. This is something that is actually sustainable.
You don't think it's fluky? It's an NHL record, 5 straight comeback wins. Mina Kimes, how about you?
Well, they've been a little bit less dramatic than the Pacers, so I do think that it's not fluky, first of all. Tim, I think, made an excellent point about the defense. I mean, they just had possession the entire second period. And then, of course, the shooting in the third period has been something that's been a continuation of a theme with them. I think it's very likely we see McDavid's team back in the finals.
Tim, you addressed it from the Oilers' perspective. Carolina and the way, the number of shots all over the ice. We only count what's on net, but they were just shot-a-palooza.
Carolina has been all over coming close.
What's your favorite team? Comment below, and if you liked the video, please leave a like. This really helps the channel grow and brings you even more content. Oh, and if you're not subscribed yet, what are you waiting for? Click the subscribe button and activate the bell to receive all notifications. With each game, we noticed that the NBA is getting more competitive every day, and all the teams are looking for reinforcements to win the championship. And only here can you follow your favorite team daily with incredible content from different sources. Here on the channel, there are new videos every day with analysis, curiosities, and the best moments in basketball. That's it for today, folks. Thanks for following along. The NBA doesn't stop, and neither do we. Until the next video. NBA, the passion that connects us.